All right, gang, welcome to another episode of the Slay at Home Speaker Series. We're going to kind of let people keep tuning in here and post where they're from. I've seen a lot of Colorado this evening, so thanks for tuning in to all my fellow Coloradans. I'm coming to you live from Eagle, Colorado this evening, and every Thursday evening at 6 p.m. you can check out a new episode of the Slay at Home series. You can also find all of our previous episodes on our website or our Facebook page. And if you give us a like or a share, you can follow along as well. So tonight's episode is sponsored by Weston, as is the whole Slay at Home speaker series. And looks like we've also got some Washington in here. I think I saw, yeah, California. We've got Seattle. So we'll kind of let people keep filtering in here. And we're just stoked that all of you are tuning in this evening. So tonight's episode is called Recreate Responsibly. It's kind of a lesson on how to, um, you know, really recreate on public land, and to, deal with all of the other various users that you're going to encounter when you're out on public land. So we've got some great educators here this evening from Leave No Trace, the Outdoor Recreation Industry Office here in Colorado, also the U.S. Forest Service. So we're really stoked that all of our panelists could be here tonight. And again, thanks for tuning in this evening. Let us know if you have questions for any of the presenters this evening. You can type them in the Q&A, and a lot of you are already familiar with your chat section. So feel free to say hello down there in the chat. And if you do have any actual formal questions that you want to ask directly to our panelists, just let us know right there in the Q&A, and we will get to them as soon as we can. So tonight we will be addressing, what is the U.S. public land system? Why is that tied into backcountry travel? We'll have a great discussion on Leave No Trace ethics here in Colorado. Really, a lot of us are familiar with Leave No Trace and what that means, but there's a whole organization behind that phrase. So we have a great educator here tonight to kind of really get in depth on what Leave No Trace actually means. We'll also be discussing winter safety and how the U.S. Forest Service really does everything they can to provide you with the resources you need to travel safely in the backcountry. Mainly, we'll focus on winter safety this evening. We'll also use Vail Pass Recreation Area as a kind of a case study for how to operate in mixed use areas where you might have skiers, snowmobilers, snowshoers, people staying in huts. There's a wide variety of people that access the backcountry here in the winter. So, and then we'll kind of end it with a lot of great information on the state of Colorado's new winter safety program and a really great website that they've built out as an excellent resource for everyone traveling to Colorado this season to get into the backcountry. And like I mentioned, we'll have a Q&A, so let us know if there's any questions that you guys have this evening. Feel free to type them in the chat, or better yet, the Q&A section. So I am your host, Ben Hilly. I'm the brand experience manager here at Weston. I do all kinds of great things. Most of our education, I kind of oversee. I run all of our guide partnerships and manage our great guide team. We have over 45 professional mountain guides that ride Weston skis and snowboards and really represent backcountry education in everything they do. I also have the great pleasure of working on our design team. So really all kinds of great stuff here at Weston. And we've also got Kiira, one of our Weston guide team members here tonight. Kiira, thanks so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Thank you, Ben. Hi, everybody. My name's Kiira Antenucci. I'm originally from Evergreen, Colorado, but I'm out here in Washington State. Now I am a Leave No Trace Master Educator, and this is my first season with Weston. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome, Kiira. Thanks so much for being here. We've also got Kate from the U.S. Forest Service. Kate, thanks so much for being here.
Hey, it's great to be here with you all. My name's Kate DeMorest. I'm the lead backcountry snow ranger with the USFS. I spent the last 13 years ski patrolling, working as a ranger throughout different parts of the country, backcountry skiing as much as possible, and otherwise enjoying public lands in and around the North American West.
Awesome, Kate. Really glad to see you here. I see Kate most of the time on the snow up at Vail Pass. So thanks again, Kate. Stoked to have you.
Absolutely.
Next up, we've got Nathan. Nathan, thanks so much for being here, buddy.
Yeah, Ben, thanks for having me. Thanks to you and to your sponsors for putting on this series. Really critical this year. So my name is Nathan Fey. I am the director of the Colorado Outdoor Recreation Industry Office, which is a division of the Governor's Office of Economic Development and International Trade. And I get to serve as the state's kind of central coordinator for all outdoor recreation industry matters, whether it's policy or resource development or industry promotion, connecting with our constituents and our businesses and our communities that rely on the health of our state's outdoor rec economy, which certainly includes winter recreation.
That's right. Nathan, thanks so much for being here, buddy. Well, yeah, again, guys, we've assembled a team of some pretty awesome educators here this evening. So please let us know any questions you have for these guys, but we're going to cover a lot, so we will get to it. So first off, what are public lands? What do we mean when we discuss the public land system here in the United States? Really, if you're getting into the backcountry here in Colorado or really anywhere in the West, you're probably on public lands. And what we mean is it's all yours. That's one of my favorite slogans that, was adopted by the National Forest Foundation, who we've worked with a ton here at Weston. But your public land system, it's one of the best resources that you have at your disposal, especially if you're into hiking, biking, camping, hunting, fishing, you name it. Your public lands are where most of us are able to do those things that we love. So we have over 640 million acres here in the United States that you all have access to. Even if you're visiting from out of the country, you're more than welcome to recreate in these amazing places here in the United States. So we have, federal land, we have state land, we even have local land that are overseen by our government. So we'll really address mainly, federal land this evening. So that really means national forests, which most of us are probably familiar with. You've probably been in a national forest. If you're a backcountry traveler, even if it's in the summer, if you've been, hiking, if you've summited a 14er, you've already been in one of these national forests, and they're just expansive. They're these amazing places. Maybe you've even been to a national park or a monument, which maybe have a little stricter guidelines. Maybe you have to pay to get in, right? Maybe you have to make certain reservations to see certain things. But we have a wonderful system of national parks and monuments here in the United States. And then wilderness areas are often inside of a national forest, even a national park, where they might be pristine mountaintops or areas that really we don't do a lot of management on, but they're a lot more regulated. Maybe you're not allowed to have campfires, right? Maybe you can't camp anywhere near water sources. There's a few more regulations, and anytime you're in a wilderness area or a national park or a national forest, it's really your responsibility to know the rules and regulations that exist when you're traveling in these areas. And so that's really the things that we're going to hit on this evening, is how to recreate responsibly when you're out here in one of these amazing public land systems. So don't take it from me, take it from some of our fine folks at the National Forest Foundation. What is so great about public lands? Also, here is a great map of your public land system to really put it in perspective. You can see, basically the whole west part of the United States is public land. So this also ties right into the Rocky Mountains, which run right through here. You can also see a lot of California, Nevada, all the way up here, Washington and Oregon. We've got tons of public land for everyone to access. So check them out.
As a child, my dad told me that this forest near our house, that we had owned it. As I got older, he started explaining that we owned it with other people. And eventually the idea of national forest was explained to me. I think that understanding that we actually own that, it really changed my life. I think that there's a disconnect between the public and the lands that they own.
Some people don't realize what the National Forest offers them.
People are just forgetting to go and see these wild places.
One of the biggest problems facing our national forests is just awareness.
I don't think a lot of people are aware that it is their public land.
I think it's really easy to take national forests for granted because it's always been here for us.
I see it as our most valuable resource in this country, and as a citizen, I think it's our greatest right to wander and roam and be connected to this earth.
The thing I wish more people knew about national forests is just simply how incredible they are. They're life-changing.
You know, I'd have to say that my time and experience within the national forest has had a huge effect on who I have become.
The National Forest means many different things to many people. My family can attest to the fact that after I get done climbing, I'm a happier, better person.
It's where I go to find my peace. It's where I go to reconnect with nature.
In national forests, I am completely present. It's one of the most important things for me when I need to disconnect from the rest of the noise.
It makes me appreciate everything else I have in my life. It leaves me with a sense of confidence that I can't get anywhere else.
It's in the national forests that you see the relationship between the land and the animals. It makes me feel alive. That's the feeling that I'm looking for in life.
When you own something, when you truly own something, you have an inherent responsibility to take care of that thing. That's in all of us.
To me, it's our shared land, it's our shared heritage, and it's my responsibility to take care of it.
If we take care of it, it'll take care of us.
The responsibility that comes with being a steward of these lands, it shouldn't be intimidating. I think this is probably one of the greatest things that exists under the banner of what it means to be an American.
It's hard to really convey the value of national forests, but if you take a group of kids out there, it becomes pretty obvious. The looks on their faces, I mean, that's how you can understand the value of it.
Showing future generations to come that this is a place where you can go, and this is a place where you can heal. This is a place where you can grow as a person.
When I talk to my children about the forest and the importance, to me, it's everything that's good in this world and life. It's really a symbol of freedom, just seeing what the potential of humanity is. Go play.
Go discover.
Go beyond.
It's all yours.
Perfect. So again, that was an awesome video from our buddies at the National Forest Foundation. If you guys aren't familiar with them, definitely check them out at nationalforest.org. A lot of great programs that they sponsor. We've actually worked with them to do a lot of great projects around Colorado, everything from protecting winter elk habitat to the Trail Host program. Just a great organization. So check them out and get involved in a national forest near you. There's a lot of great volunteer programs, whether it's working on trails in the summer or even motorized programs. Definitely see how you can help and volunteer in a local national forest near you. Next up, we're going to be discussing leave no trace ethics. And again, we have a fantastic master educator here this evening who's going to be walking us through the fine points of leave no trace. Kiira, I'm going to turn it over to you here, buddy. Thanks so much again for tuning in, and I will hand it over here.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. All right. So first, I'm just going to go over kind of what Leave No Trace is. Leave No Trace is a nonprofit organization that's based out of Boulder, Colorado. And our mission is to conserve the natural world through education and not restrictions. The Leave No Trace ethics are a set of principles that backcountry users can use to guide their decisions when it comes to recreating in the outdoors. The principles help to ensure that the space we enjoy can be enjoyed in the same way by others that come after us. If you're interested in learning more about what we have to offer, we have an amazing website at lnt.org, and I'll put that in the chat. And we also have a series of classes that you can take to get more information based on the research that we have done. The Leave No Trace principles are up there, and They're a call to action. They're not a set of rules. They can be used in all different forms of recreation, but tonight I'll be specifically talking about winter recreation. So the 7 principles are: plan ahead and prepare, travel and camp on durable surfaces, dispose of waste properly, leave what you find, minimize campfire and hut impacts, respect wildlife, be considerate of other visitors. So the first principle is plan ahead and prepare. This doesn't just include knowing where you're going or having the necessary equipment to accomplish your objective. The broader picture that this principle paints is that you and your partners are prepared to enter the backcountry unassisted in the terrain and the environment that you're going into. So as a user of the backcountry, it's important for us to practice safety first, meaning that you should always carry a first aid kit that matches your level of training. And if you don't have first aid training, I highly encourage and recommend you to go and seek that out. You should also communicate your plan with somebody that's outside of your party so other people know where you're going. And if you're traveling in avalanche terrain, you should have an awareness of what that is and what your potential hazard could be. You should also have training in the use of a beacon, shovel, and probe, and knowledge of the area and knowledge of your group's abilities that you're going out there with. If you're recreating in the backcountry during the winter, I strongly recommend taking an avalanche rescue course. You can do that through the American Institute of Avalanche Research and Education, that ARI down at the bottom of the screen. Go check their page out, it's amazing. And you can get a better understanding of what avalanche terrain is, how avalanches can be triggered, what to do in the event of an avalanche, and most importantly, just how to stay out of it altogether. The second principle, travel on durable surfaces. In the winter environment, this primarily pertains to snow. So when we're traveling and recreating in the backcountry, we want to stick to staying on snow. We want to avoid, in general, traveling on shallow snowpacks because although there's something blanketing vegetation, there often isn't enough to insulate the vegetation from our actual impact. So the rule of thumb is generally around 3 feet of snow for a snowpack is what you're looking on to travel across fragile environments. You can also, stick to trails if there's not enough snow, or rock jump when you can. In general, try to stick to one skin track and minimize the tracks and impact in one environment. And if you see a skin track that is regularly used and is relatively shallow, you can try to find an alternative path on deeper snow. If you're looking to set up a tent in the backcountry, you should avoid camping on vegetation and instead opt for snow, rocks, or dirt. And generally, we try to keep our camps 150 feet away from any running water. But if you're winter camping and you're planning on using snow as your primary water source, we recommend that you designate a bathroom site 150 feet away from your designated water collection area. And that's important just for safety of you and other users in the area. Okay, so the next principle, the third principle, dispose of waste properly, can basically be boiled down to pack it in, pack it out. Whatever you bring into the backcountry should come back out with you, whether that's snacks, camera, your kids, etc. It should all come back out with you. During the winter, this often means that you should also be prepared to carry out your poop. You can purchase human waste disposal bags from your local outdoor retailers, or REI carries them all the time. It's really easy to find them there. In some cases, you may be able to find a patch of uncovered and unfrozen soil that's at least 200 feet away from running water and dig a cat hole that's 6 to 8 inches. But honestly, just packing it out is oftentimes easier. When you're recreating this winter, I also encourage you not to only pack out your trash, but if you see trash in the areas that you're recreating in, take that out too. Leave the places better than you found it. So the fourth principle, leave what you find. I always kind of like to start this off with a question. Have you ever taken a shell from a beach or a rock from a river? Because I have. The fourth principle, leave what you find, is a good reminder that these principles are not rules. They are principles that you can put into practice and start a conversation over. This principle basically strives to make you, the user, think about what it is that you're taking from the spot that you're visiting. At the time that I took those shells and those rocks, there was some emotion, some meaning tied to it, that space, that place, and the people that I was experiencing it with. Now they sit on my table or on my dresser, and I honestly couldn't tell you if I got them from the store or the side of the street, or where I got them from. Sometimes that objects from a space don't always mean the same, and the sentiment doesn't always travel back to your home with them. Instead, I like to leave the beautiful objects in place for others to see and experience and take pictures that I can keep forever. So when you recreate outside and see something that you'd like to take, I encourage you to stop, take a moment, and think about the value of the object that you're taking in the context of the environment that you're taking it from, and then the context of the environment you're taking it to. And does it still hold the same value? And another way you can look at this is like, if you take one rock, it's one rock that's gone. But if everybody takes one rock, eventually there's no more rocks there to be seen. So again, this is a principle. This is about the ethics. This one really comes down to that. So it's a stop and think about, have a conversation.
One I would add to that is don't write your name on aspen trees, please.
Yes. We don't like nature graffiti.
Yeah.
Keep nature natural, please. Yeah. The other thing I'll touch on is the fact that cultural artifacts can be found on a lot of our public lands. Cultural artifacts are protected by the national government, and it's illegal to remove or disturb archaeological sites, historic sites, or artifacts such as pot shards, arrowheads, and structures. So please leave those alone when you recreate in the backcountry. All right, the fifth principle, minimize campfire and hut impacts, is something that you're likely going to encounter on an overnight trip. Even in the snow, it's important to build and maintain low impact fires that use firewood that fits the 5 Ds. Those 5 Ds can be applied when you're gathering the firewood. So those are dead, down, dry, dinky, which means no bigger than your wrist, or forearm, and distant, so away from your camp. It's really important to keep low impact fires. We from Colorado and from the West Coast all have experienced the horrific fires that have been going through our nation. And so when we're recreating, we can do our part by keeping our fires small and adhering to the regulations that are in place. Something to think about when you are building a fire is also having like the safety aspect. So always provide adequate supervision for younger people when they're using stoves or fires. Follow all product and safety labels for those stoves. Always use approved fuel. Never leave a fire unattended. Keep wood and other fuel sources away from a fire, and always, always, always thoroughly extinguish your fire. In general, when using a hut, do your best to pick up after yourself and leave the hut in better condition than you found it. And that ensures that access remains open to all of us. So in the town that I grew up in Evergreen, it was a completely reasonable excuse to be late because of what we called an elk jam on the way to where you're going. At this point, I've seen so many elk and deer on the side of the road or in the middle of the road that it really doesn't faze me. When I see them while I'm recreating, it's a completely different story. I want nothing to do with them. I love to see animals interacting in their natural habitat. I just don't want to be the one that they are interacting with. So the sixth principle, respect wildlife, outlines some ways that you can help to minimize animal and human interactions. First, you should be familiar with what big animals potentially live in the places that you're planning on going. I'm talking about bears, moose, elk, mountain lions, anything that you can't outrun and that has the potential to hurt you. The best way to minimize your impact and interaction with these or any animals is to give them lots of space. You can also avoid specific habitats during sensitive times. For example, you can avoid winter elk ranges and calving areas. If you follow Principle 3 and pack out what you bring in, you shouldn't be leaving any food behind for animals to eat. But it's important to note that feeding wildlife does change their interaction with the environment and others that come after you. It's important not to feed animals because if they get used to humans feeding them in the backcountry, they're more likely to wander into our neighborhoods and into urban settings when they get hungry instead of interacting in their natural habitats. And finally, if you recreate with a dog, please make sure that you keep it under control or leashed so that it's not harassing wildlife. All right, the seventh and final, my favorite principle, is be considerate of others. The backcountry is for everybody. Like, we all own this land, we all have a right to be here, and everyone should be respected in these spaces. When heading out, make sure that you know what kind of land you're going to be recreating on. Avoid traveling on private property and know what regulations are in play for the type of land that you're recreating on. Be aware of other users in the area. Skiers should watch out for snowshoers and hikers, and then motorized vehicles should always yield and pay attention to other users in the area. In the winter setting, make sure that when you are traveling uphill, you're using the skin track if you ski, and if you're walking or on snowshoes, walk alongside of it. That way you preserve that skin track for the skiers that come after you. And lastly, if you want to listen to music, please do that through headphones. For me and many others, it's one of the reasons that we go into the backcountry is to enjoy the natural soundtrack and the quiet break from the loudness of our everyday lives. Yeah, that's kind of it for now. Thanks for sticking with me through this presentation. We have some wonderful speakers to come. And if you have questions, throw them in the Q&A, and I will throw my Instagram as well as the Leave No Trace website in the chat.
Awesome. Kiira, thanks so much. We're stoked to learn a little more about Leave No Trace. We really appreciate it. And you know, there's definitely a lot there. So again, if you guys have any specific questions, just let Kiira here know. I would agree that this last one is certainly one of my favorites. It is important to just really respect everyone else out there enjoying the backcountry and really think about your impact. The other one about wildlife is also one of my favorites too. I agree with you. I'm definitely trying to steer clear, and anytime I do see wildlife, I really try to not affect it. You know, if that wildlife is running away, you know, you've already failed. You've affected that wildlife. And in the winter, it can be critical. You know, it's those elk, they get a really hard season, and a lot of them don't make it through the winter, and you just spooking that herd, you know, could be the difference. And so I always try to think about it in that perspective, and how are these animals doing, you know, in this place that I love, and do I want those animals to still be around for my daughter to see, you know, in 20, 30 years. So it's something to really consider, and thanks so much for explaining these things to us. So next up, we've got Kate from the U.S. Forest Service. She'll be discussing some different topics and just really getting into winter and backcountry recreation safety. These topics can really be applied to anyone all over the United States and abroad. So Kate, thanks so much for being here. I'll pass it over to you now.
Hey, thanks so much, Ben. Really happy to be here, and thanks to everyone for tuning in tonight. I think you'll see with all of us as presenters, we will be overlapping a bit on some of the topics, but that's good, right? If it's important, it's worth repeating. So here at the Forest Service, one of the things I want to talk about, there's two parts. One is a responsible winter backcountry recreation campaign that we're trying to promote along with the state, like with Nathan and a couple of other different backcountry organizations. And so I think you can see here, You can see on the slide just a couple of the topics that we're going over, but really what our goals are with this is to make sure that our locals and visitors alike feel that we feel the need to get the word out with them with these simple guidelines so that everybody can have an enjoyable and safe winter recreation experience. And that we're really trying to put the onus on the user. We're seeing a lot of different people in the mountains these days, which is awesome. We want people to be using their public lands, but we do want people to be considerate and courteous of others. And I think something that's unique with the backcountry is that despite the guidebooks that are out there and the stuff you can find online, it's not necessarily common knowledge that there are different rules of etiquette for the different types of users out there. We've talked about there's snowcat users, snowmobilers, backcountry skiers, snowshoers, speed flyers. If you can move around in the winter on it, you betcha it's going to be out there. So looking at this, I think the big points to talk about are the planning and preparedness etiquette for whatever your mode of travel. And we really want to hit home to be mindful person in the backcountry. So you can see here that our public lands are here for everyone to enjoy. It's your backyard, it's your forest. Take care of it so that it can be there for the next 7 generations. And right now too, especially during the pandemic, a lot of us are under stress. A lot of us are cooped up, can't see our friends and family. So more than ever, being able to get outside is very important for us. And because of that, there's a lot of people out there. So we really need to learn how to get along with one another. And yeah, we want to keep it inclusive for all identities and all abilities. Try to put yourself in other people's shoes, other people's interests. Sometimes it can be tough, especially if you're running the gauntlet, I-70, trying to get up to Vail Pass, for example. I think most of us have been there and felt that. And you can see, we'll put some of this information in at the end of the presentation, but we have, we're probably just gonna hammer everybody with websites and QR codes and links to follow, but it's good. You'll have homework, you have stuff to do. Let's see here. Yeah, and I think something that I always try to be and to train into the rangers and the staff that I have in the summer is kind of the golden rule. Just try to be the person that you want to encounter out there. Be kind, be considerate. You don't know what's going on with that person that day. Make it a better place. So moving on, let's look at some of our main points. So these are the basics that myself and another snow ranger on the Eagle Holy Cross District worked out to try and promote for folks. So what I said earlier, a lot of the emphasis is going to be on planning and preparing. And so I'll go over some of these points real quick, but before you even go, you're gonna have to drive somewhere probably, especially if you're somewhere on the Front Range or your forest is a little farther away from your doorstep. So we're here in Colorado. That means checking the cotrip.org. CDOT has a great website for checking road conditions, speeds, hazards, closures. Check the cameras, see what the roads look like. That might dictate your day as far as how long it's going to take to get to your destination, or if you might get stuck overnight for road closures. Carpool, that's a big one this year. Despite COVID, and I was trying to be careful about that, be mindful that our trailheads have less capacity in the winter because of the accumulation of snow, snow storage following plowing, especially when we get those huge dumps in March. So it can get a little tight in there, and we do our best, but nature prevails always. So if you can carpool with your friends to minimize that congestion, that we would all appreciate that. There's just more for us to play with. Weather, checking out not only weather.gov, just for what's going to be happening on your travels, but also the avalanche forecast if you'll be traveling in avalanche zones. There's also resources for other parts of North America with avalanche.org. And then if you're going to be traveling up Canada, you can get up there. Av Canada has a bunch of great information for that too. Be prepared is a tough one to sum up in a quick slideshow. It could really run the gamut from bringing extra socks to making sure you have spare beacons for your batteries for your beacon. So, I'm a big fan of telling my crews, my snow rangers up at Vail Pass, bring a lot of water and snacks. You know, we're not much different than an 8-year-old in our needs when it comes down to it. So feed yourself, drink lots of water. First aid supplies and repair kits for your equipment. You know, we run a lot of sleds, so bring your spare belts. Maybe your split board binding loses its pin, you know, have something in your pack like a zip tie or something else that you can make make sure that all that effort you put into getting to your destination isn't for naught. And then also too, have a plan, know what your turnaround time is going to be. You know, right now it's getting dark around 4. So have a good turnaround time to make sure that you can get back to the trailhead safely and in one piece so that we don't have to call search and rescue. A big thing that we're trying to talk about these days too is having a plan A and B. And I think I've seen a couple other campaigns really saying have a plan C as well. And what we mean by that is sometimes, you know, if you and your friends are getting a sandwich and some coffees and you don't get to the trailhead by 10, or you're there at 10, I should say, that trailhead's full up. And what we're seeing as land managers are people trying to park on the exit ramps, trying to park on the roadways, parking where we generally have space reserved for search and rescue or emergency EMS crews. So we're really trying to tell people that if a parking lot's full, don't be that jerk parking out on the side of the road causing traffic hazards for CDOT. Try to make other plans for yourself if you get there and the trailhead's full. Other things for planning ahead and preparing, we'll talk more about this too here in a minute, but downloading and carrying maps. I know for a lot of folks who are newer to recreating or maybe newer to Colorado, there's a whole host of different apps that you can use. You know, Forest Service has different maps, state has different maps. So we can talk about some of the ones that we like to use later on. And then, you know, my big thing for folks too is to make sure you download those in case you don't have cell service. It's pretty common. You know, where I work in Vail Pass, it's 55,000 acres, and a lot of that area does not have cell phone service. So if you're banking on your phone, you might be out of luck. Avoid weekends. Unfortunately, that's when a lot of us have our sweet relief from work, but because of that, that's when we tend to get the busiest and we get a lot of crowding going on. So it plays into the having a plan A, B, and C, and just think about trying to get out there a little bit earlier. You know, we see out in the National Forest, the time frame from 9 to 11 is the crunch time. So if you can get in before then, it's totally worth it. You'll probably get a parking spot. No guarantees though, just saying. Respect uphill policies. That's a pretty popular way to recreate right now, especially since we don't have a whole ton of snow up here in the high country. And, you know, a lot of ski patrol areas, their patrol will have a hotline that you can call that they'll update on a daily or weekly basis. You can check different ski area websites. You can also check with the U.S. Forest Service, since most of the ski areas are permitted through us on our public lands. And yeah, just be cognizant of that. You know, it's early mountain setup for a lot of those mountain operations folks, those patrollers. So be cognizant that they have a job to do too. And then this is another one that we're trying to really promote this year too, is if you're new, go with a guide or find a mentor. You know, we all had to start somewhere. So if you're new to the sport, new to the area, hire a guide. We have both the Forest Service and the state of Colorado, we have websites with lists of permitted outfitter guides, different companies with proven safety records and who are very professional. They're dedicated to their craft, whether it's teaching, avalanche education and snow science, or techniques of various backcountry travel. There's a lot of different folks out there who do it well and that we're proud to have working on our forest. Next up that we're talking about, and part of our Recreate Responsibly campaign, is what do you do when you get to the trailhead? So check the kiosks, check the signboards. They're there for a reason. We can't call everybody and tell them what to do, nor should we, but we do like to post stuff at the trailhead so that people can read and see the up-to-date information that's pertinent to that particular trail or trailhead. So that might be a wildlife closure, something like that, or other local good to know information. Be considerate when parking. You know, just to think about it, maybe the parking lot, say at Vail Pass, is totally open. You got the whole place to yourself. Still, you know, make efforts to park in case that place fills up right after you. We only have so much space. That's our big limiting factor. So try to park conscientiously. And again, try to make sure that you're not blocking the no parking areas. Usually those areas are posted for a reason so that CDOT can do their job plowing or storing snow, or that rescuers can get there to potentially rescue you or someone that you care a lot about. Park legally. I mean, I think that kind of goes without saying, but that plays into that having a plan A, B, and C. If there's no parking, you know, don't park in the ditch. Don't make new parking spaces by driving all over the willows or the roadways. Pack it up and head somewhere else. It's all right. Pack it in, pack it out. This is touching base on some of Kiira's topics. It is a great one, and I'm going to start giggling because I was giggling when she was saying it. You know, pack out what you bring in there, even a banana. A banana didn't come from the forest here in Colorado, so it shouldn't really be staying here. Take that out with you. Same thing with poop. We have wag bags. They're available. They're a thing. They're a great thing, especially in very populous areas. There's only so many places that waste can hang out, and especially for your dogs. You know, nobody wants to be riding through that stuff or get it all over their skin. So do us a favor, bag it up, take that bag with you. Just because you took the bag and hung it in a tree doesn't mean you're absolved of that poop. You gotta throw it away. And then, you know, I think this is the human aspect of it. Like, we're all there to be recreating and having fun on national forests, right? It's a really big deal to have this. So you're going to see people that maybe you don't agree with politically or sport-wise, but be nice, you know, like, we got to be respectful of one another, and we have to foster a place of inclusivity and community. You know, that's why we're all here and recreating and enjoying the snow. So let's look at that unity factor. Terrain awareness. Do not ski or ride above other groups. You know, make conservative decisions and know that triggering an avalanche can impact you and other groups around you. Look out for others, especially in Avi terrain, and be aware that other groups may be traveling below you, and others traveling above you could put you at risk. Limit your exposure. I think that goes without saying. Travel singly across avalanche terrain, and beware of your impact. You know, your actions have consequences. So look at your surroundings, dig around, test the snow, you know, talk to other people that are in your group, see something, say something, and talk to other folks that you encounter, see what they ran into for conditions for the day. Responsibility code. This applies to skiers and moto, skiers, riders, moto, everybody, but you should really know how to use and should carry all your avalanche equipment, beacon, shovel, probe. If you're not so hot at that, come talk to one of the snow rangers at Vail Pass. We'd love to show you and help you out. Also, you can practice. Once we get a little bit more snow, we'll have a Forest Service beacon practice park over at Meadow Mountain, just in Minturn by our Forest Service station. So you can work on those skills and get better at that. Like I said, obey all posted signs and area designations. We can't have rangers at every corner, so we really rely on our visitors to know what they're doing. So read those signs, learn it. Stay in control. Stack your tracks when you're skiing. We want to conserve the terrain as much as we can and try not to post hole the skin track. And then, yeah, communicate with other parties. It might do you some good. This is more for the motorized crowd, but yield to uphill traffic. Those people traveling up have a lot more work to do, so just pull over on the side of the trail. Try to keep your speeds down, especially if you're passing someone going quite a bit slower than you might scare them. Yield to snowcats, that's a big one. They're a lot bigger than you, and they have a difficult time seeing in the cabin, so give them a generous amount of space and try to steer clear. You know, riding, hiking single file on the right, pass cautiously on the left if you can. For skiing and riding out in our hybrid areas especially, you know, try to use those established pickup and drop off areas. Know that other people will be using them too. Try to be quick about it. Try not to stop on corners or places where you're obstructed from view and that you could potentially be a hazard to others. And then this is a big one at Vail Pass for sure, is if you're towing your friends around for hybrid skiing and riding, make sure you stow those tow ropes before you start ripping up Machine Gun Ridge. Those things can take somebody out. They're pretty dangerous. All right, so I guess this is my segue into the second part of what I'm here to talk to you all about, and that's kind of using the Vail Pass Winter Recreation Area, which is where I'm the lead backcountry snow ranger. It's a good example of where all these different portions of our responsibility code can come into play. So the Vail Pass Winter Recreation Area is kind of at the forefront model for mixed use on public land. So it's a multi-use zone encompassing over 55,000 acres on public land. There's over 119 miles of motorized and non-motorized trails out there, which means like you might encounter anything from snowshoers, backcountry skiers to snowmobilers, snowcats. Yeah, like I said, if you can recreate in the winter on it or with it, you'll see it at Vail Pass for sure. One of the interesting models that we have is we charge a day use fee to recreate there. And that's a rather unique structure, as it allows us in our programming to put pretty much all the money back into the management of the area itself. We're very unique in that way. So when you recreate at Vail Pass, your user fees go towards plowing, parking access, maintaining that for everybody, signing in the area, maps. We maintain management of the zones. I think you can see on the map here that Ben's put up, there's some yellow, there's some blue, and there's a little bit of purple. Those are our different management zones for motorized, non-motorized, and hybrid. It's an interesting matrix for sure. So other things we do, we groom a lot of the trails on the one side. We provide ranger patrols. Like I said, I have a staff of 10 this year. So we have a lot of rangers out there providing patrols for folks, education. We support search and rescue efforts within the area. We do some enforcement of the rules and regulations. And then we also maintain infrastructure such as the automated fee machine and 2 new beacon checkers that I'll talk about here in a little bit. So new for this season, we have snow rangers who will be staffing Vail Pass 7 days a week. And we would like to remind users that there are 5 different trailheads to access this area. So we have, you know, Vail Pass right there at exit 190 on I-70. There's an access point through the town of Red Cliff. We have Pando, Camp Hill Main, and Camp Hill South. You travel up 24 past Battle Mountain. So if it's really busy at Vail Pass, we try to encourage people to hit up our other trailheads. Even though it might be a little bit longer of an approach, you'll likely have the place mostly to yourself. The other thing, like I said, I promised I'd mention our beacon checkers. So we are installing 2 beacon checkers at Vail Pass so visitors can make sure their avalanche transceiver is transmitting. So we have, I underline this in my notes, but a huge thanks to Weston, BCA, National Forest Foundation, and the Vail Pass Task Force for making this happen. It takes a lot of effort to get infrastructure and a program like this up there so folks can check themselves before they go into the backcountry. So take a look. Once we get some more snow and we can put those checkpoints in, they'll be free to use. You know, Vail Pass is a unique case study. I'll try and make this quick, but you know, our management plan essentially divides Vail Pass into motorized, non-motorized, and hybrid areas. And we have our boundaries are unique in that we define them by clear topographic or geographic features where possible. So if some of you are familiar with Buffalo Pass, one side of the road is motorized. I'm sorry, Rabbit Ears Pass. One side's motorized, one side's non-motorized. That's not always applicable for everybody, and it wasn't applicable for us in this instance, so we had to get a little bit more creative. So the idea with this too is to have clear management so people who are visiting, locals and new visitors, can know what to expect and they know what they will encounter in what areas and so forth. So, you know, each time you recreate in a national forest, you need to learn about where you're allowed to go and how to respect the boundaries of these zones and private property. And that kind of leads me into motor vehicle use maps and other mapping items. So yeah, motor vehicle use maps, MVUMs, they're growing in popularity, I swear. They're not out there for every forest just yet. I think pretty proud of the White River. We do have a winter travel management plan, and this is kind of the result of it. So what we say is it's your responsibility to know where there are prohibited areas, including wilderness, when traveling on public lands. And I think as Ben's mentioned, it's the year 2020. Saying I don't know just really isn't an excuse. And me as a ranger out there, it doesn't pass the muster with me. So take it upon yourself to figure this stuff out. So using Vail Pass as a case for this, we have a motor vehicle use map that you can pick up paper copy at the ranger stations, you know, here in Dillon or the Eagle Holy Cross Ranger Station, or any office should have them for their specific district. And then you can also download them online. They're pretty easy to find if you have a mapping application like Avenza, for example. And then for Vail Pass, we've also created a geo-referenced Vail Pass trail map, which is published to Avenza as well. There's a QR code located at our booth and on the website. So people can know, you can see the blue dot on the map and know where you are at all times. And then you can also see what route you're on. We name the different areas for skiing and motor snowmobiling, so you can know where you are in case, you know, maybe something happened to your friend and you need to call and report where you are. Hopefully you can use this tool for better location services and a faster response. You know, I think the other thing too is we want you to be respectful of other users and know that there is some private property within the Vail Pass Winter Recreation Area. We do have 6 different 10th Mountain Division of huts, backcountry huts in there. And, you know, the folks that go up there to stay appreciate the buffer that's around them. You know, they're there to do whatever they need to, but it's nice to give them some space and some solitude. Let's see here. And then we want to make sure right now, at this point in time especially, that folks are avoiding routes with inadequate snow cover. This is kind of part of that stay the trail item on the bullet list. So it's unique. This winter is a bit dry. So we would really like to have at least 6 inches of snow for machines. You know, we can utilize less if we're on skis and slipboards and whatnot, but if you can see willows and tree roots, open soil out there, you know, turn around and wait until there's more coverage. You know, not only is it tough on the environment, but it's also tough on your gear and potentially you. So keep that in mind. Respect wildlife wintering habitats. That's, like as Ben said, and Kiira too, that's when our local wildlife is at its most vulnerable. And I think that's all I got.
Awesome. Yeah, and I would second that MVUMs are are critical. If you're traveling in the backcountry, I come across 10, 15 people a year in the summer out on trail that are just lost. They don't know where they're at. And I'm like, do you have an MVUM? And they're like, what's that? So, well, here, take mine. They're easy, they're free, and they're great. Like, they tell you exactly where you should be, where you're not allowed to be. So really, anytime you're traveling in the national forest, go pick up an MVUM, or better yet, download one. Like Kate said, they're great resources, and they're going to teach you where you're allowed to be, ideally to the point where you don't need one. I don't need one at Vail Pass because I've stared at this thing for a decade, and I know, and I can advise people and help people when they're lost about, where how do I get out of here? How do I came from Camp Hale. I'm at I-70 now. How'd I get here? You need this stuff. It'll definitely make your day a lot easier. So
yeah, good points, Ben. Thank you.
Yeah, Kate, thanks so much for being here. You guys all say hello to Kate if you see her up at Vail Pass this season. She's fantastic. So
wow, thanks, Ben.
Yeah. Next up, we've got Nathan from the Colorado Outdoor Recreation Industry Office. Nathan, thanks so much for being here, buddy. I'm going to kick over the screen share to you and let you walk us through that great new website there.
Alrighty, thanks, Ben. And Kiira and Kate, thanks so much for your participation tonight. Really good information from two really valuable industry partners. So big applause. Ben, just a quick time check. Are we on track? How much time?
You're doing great, buddy.
Right on. So I appreciate the opportunity to kind of roll out this new statewide coordinated campaign around getting in front of backcountry danger this year. And, this effort started months ago when we were addressing the challenges that our industry faces because of COVID, and because of what we expect to be a pretty robust ski season in the times of a pandemic. And as we were entering 2020, 2021 winter season, Colorado State and federal agencies began coordinating around an educational campaign, along with some of our industry partners like Leave No Trace and the Forest Service, specifically to promote backcountry winter safety best practices. The campaign recognizes, I think first and foremost, that skiing and winter sports are a really important driver of Colorado's $62 billion outdoor recreation economy. Specifically, outdoor recreation, backcountry winter recreation is a key component of that, and it's also experienced this rapid growth in consumer demand over the last decade. And so, here we are, Kate said 2020, during this pandemic, we know and we responded to the fact that ski areas are going to provide limited access. We're going to see reservation systems, and the intent behind a coordinated effort on behalf of the ski resorts is to mitigate virus transmission, but that could potentially result in more people skiing and recreating in our backcountry in Colorado. That's an accessible alternative. So we convened over 100 stakeholders back in September to get in front of this issue. And we recognized that what was really critical is an educational campaign that targets all backcountry users, not newbies, but all the way up through motorized, human-powered, experienced, novice, the whole spectrum. And so what we're counting on is this increase in visitation and exploration of our backcountry areas. And in partnership with certainly my office, the Office of Outdoor Recreation Industry for the state, our Colorado Tourism Office, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and our industry partners, Forest Service, Leave No Trace, the Avalanche Information Center, and many others, we put our heads together to develop an approach to reducing any impact that we may potentially have on each other in the backcountry, as well as on our natural resources, and especially on our search and rescue teams around the state. And so the Tourism Office has, in this partnership, the Tourism Office is launching a 4-month campaign around sort of getting in front of backcountry danger. And I hope that you can see the screen here in front of you. This is the landing page for this coordinated campaign. And I'm going to walk you through some of the key components that are embedded in here, but I want to set some of the context first. So in an effort to reduce this like increased impact on ourselves and our environment, Governor Polis earlier this week actually proclaimed December 7th through the 13th as Colorado Backcountry Winter Safety Awareness Week. And with the governor's support, that allows for this really strong and unified message from the highest position in the state and carries through all of our participating partners, whether they're state agencies, federal agencies, or advocacy groups and guides and outfitters across Colorado. And so we've been working with all of those partners to ask businesses and nonprofits and individual stakeholders and enthusiasts and local government agencies to encourage people to first and foremost take Colorado's Backcountry Winter Safety Awareness Pledge. That pledge demonstrates this unified approach to best practices when we're out there playing off-piste, and it includes a very linear approach to understanding how we recreate in the backcountry. How do we plan appropriately? And it includes some of the best principles from Know Before You Go. How do we recreate responsibly while we're in the backcountry, and includes some of the guiding principles that were considered as part of the Recreate Responsibly Coalition's national campaign. And then, to Kiira's point, there's also this really important component around how do we want to leave this place when we're done with our backcountry experience. And so I want to start by focusing on the pledge, because more participation in subscribing to the principles that are embedded in the pledge, the more people that share that within Colorado and certainly with our neighboring states and across the industry, it's a reflection that we're in this together. We have a unified approach on best practices, and it opens opportunities for dialogue, especially in the backcountry, when we run across other groups that may not necessarily have the right education. They may not have mentors, they may not be with a guide, but there's a principle that we all adhere to in recreating in the backcountry. And we want to make sure that that is first and foremost in how we interact with groups that are sharing our backcountry landscapes. And the other critical part of this campaign is that we are striving to support our Search and Rescue Association and all of our volunteer teams here in Colorado in 64 counties. So with that as context, let me run through some of the backcountry, the landing page for our backcountry campaign. So obviously here we are under colorado.com/winter backcountry safety. What we have built here and what the tourism office and its contractors have created is this really easy to navigate consumer facing platform that connects everybody to the appropriate resources. We'll start with the pledge itself. And this particular tile will take you to the fundamental principles that we've embedded into the Colorado Backcountry Winter Safety Pledge. And that, as I've said already, includes some of the best principles from Know Before You Go and Recreate Responsibly and Care for Colorado. And of course, at every step of the way, we want to make sure that people are sharing this pledge as well as supporting our search and rescue teams. Allow me to navigate backwards real quickly. Part of this campaign also recognizes that we see a huge uptick in the number of new backcountry users, at least in Colorado, and I would assume that and I know actually working with our neighboring state directors that it's not just unique to Colorado. So making consumers aware that there are safety classes and appropriate training available to them is built into this campaign as well. So safety classes, especially during COVID, are really interesting. And so we've tried to make this platform accessible for both virtual education, right? Online classes that are offered, like the Slay at Home speaker series here tonight. We've got Know Before You Go online educational opportunities from our Avalanche Information Center. And then we have a series of other avalanche awareness classes that are available online. And while that's appropriate during the time of a pandemic where public health orders restrict the number of people that can gather, we also want to make sure that in-person classes are easy to identify and sign up for, right? We see a huge increase in participation this year. So part of the campaign is to make this consumer-facing and easily accessible. And moving on, it's really important to focus on, I think Kate said this earlier from the Forest Service, we want to encourage the use of guides and mentors if you're recreating in the backcountry. It is critical to developing your own skill set, it's critical to understanding how to be an appropriate steward of our backcountry spaces and to take care of others that may be recreating adjacently. We've developed a new business directory for guides and outfitters in the state of Colorado, and that's accessible on the outdoor recreation industry's website and caters to specific types of recreation in the winter. If you're just interested in avalanche education, here's a listing of guides and outfitter services that are offering ARI or A3 type certification programs. If you are motorized and looking at snowmobile rentals or training that is specific to snowmobiling, for example, we have a directory for that as well. In the interest of time, I will keep on moving, but I encourage all of you to spend some time with this website and especially the directory page. And of course, we want people to be aware of our danger areas. And we have a fantastic network here in Colorado of AVI forecasters through the Avalanche Information Center. And it's great to see solid green across the state right now. And as the storm that's moving into the state takes shape, I expect these colors to change a little bit. But this is an easy way for clients and consumers to access AVI forecasts. And we're hoping that that also helps educate the users that are engaging in this website, in this campaign. So Ben, as I sail through these, I'll touch on practicing COVID-19 safety procedures as well. And the state of Colorado has invested a huge amount of time and resources into working with specific industry sectors, whether it's outdoor recreation, it's indoor gathering, it's restaurants, the list goes on and on. But this particular page directs consumers to travel considerations. We have additional guidance for outdoor recreation. We even have guidance around carpooling, which I think Kate also mentioned earlier. So how do we reduce the risk of transmission? How do we support one another in recreating outdoors, but also acknowledge that this is still a pandemic and we want to practice social distancing. We need to be wearing our masks. And let's make sure that we're not bringing additional challenges to our rural communities, to our gateway communities, to our health providers, and especially to our search and rescue teams that may be responding to incidences in the backcountry. And particularly for new users, we've developed a list of resources that cater to specific sports. So if you are new to skiing and snowboarding resources, we've got access, very clickable links to know before you go, to the basics on how to skin, how to take advantage of some of the uphill access that's provided by our ski resorts, or the skill set that you may need in the backcountry. We can look to ice climbing resources, ice fishing resources, winter fat biking resources, all in effort to educate and standardize general public awareness as we continue to recreate in the backcountry and support our industry. Care for Colorado is a unique partnership with the Leave No Trace Center for Outdoor Ethics, specifically catered to, our values here in Colorado. And I suspect that we've got a number of other states that are listening in tonight that would enjoy sort of some of the videos that we've made available through this website, but also some of the principles that have been adapted specific to our recreational priorities and how we prioritize some of those natural and built assets that are adjacent to our communities or within our communities that support outdoor recreation. Fundamentally, this is an effort to teach people how to be good stewards of these places that we care so much about. And sailing right along here, fundamental again to this campaign is to support our search and rescue network in the state of Colorado. We are acutely aware that outdoor recreation has seen a huge increase in use because of the pandemic over the summer months. Some of our counties have seen a 200% increase in the number of calls and demands on our search and rescue teams. Our teams need support, and we've tried to support them with personal protective equipment. We're supporting them with additional financial resources and educating our users so that search and rescue isn't your first call. Preferably you're going out with a guide or a mentor and you're not putting yourself in danger or putting your group in danger, which would result in an incident where you might have to call local sheriff's department and deploy our search and rescue volunteers who are already overtaxed. support search and rescue, whether you're here in Colorado or you're in one of our other adjacent states. They are critical to the health and our public safety in the backcountry. And our final tile here is, I think, a great overview of the campaign. I think it speaks to each of the particular bullet points that come from Know Before You Go, from Recreate Responsibly, and from our Leave No Trace partners. And Ben, I know you're going to reinforce this for me, but I'm going to say it anyway. Please visit this website, consider taking the pledge, and share the pledge so that we are standardizing some of the best practices. And what I really appreciate about this 4-month marketing effort from our state tourism office is that as we see visitors come to Colorado for our winter recreational opportunities, whether they're from Texas or New Mexico or even further beyond, as this pledge gets shared through our social networks and through our contacts, they will already know how to behave in the backcountry, how to respect one another, and how to respect our wildlife and our natural resources. And so the more we share this pledge, and the more we advance these as standardized principles across the industry, the more we can unify as backcountry enthusiasts and take care of each other and take care of our natural spaces. And I think I will leave it at that, Ben. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Nathan. We really do appreciate you being here as well. And yeah, I would just like to second that for sure. Definitely go check out the new Backcountry Winter Safety website. Nathan and the whole crew at the state has been working really hard on this. So make sure you check it out. You can find it at colorado.com, Winter Backcountry Safety. And also sign that pledge, share it with your friends, share it on Facebook. It's 2020, so it's really easy to share these resources with people. We really encourage everyone. We've encouraged our whole guide team, our whole athlete team to sign this pledge this year, and just stay safe in the backcountry. A big point that Nathan made that I would like to reiterate is the value of search and rescue. For those of us like Kate and myself that have been at Vail Pass Rec Area for a decade, you see how many accidents there really are, and you want those people to have the time and the ability to come and rescue the people that they need to. And that statistic, 200% increase, that's a big one. So really be safe out there this winter. Use all of these great tips and techniques that we've discussed over the past hour here, and just let us know if there are any last minute questions you guys have. We'll kind of quickly run through the Q&A, but again, thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. We really do appreciate it. Nathan, I did have one question here. I'll go ahead and stop sharing and we'll just run through the Q&A here, gang. So let's see here. We had, did you answer this open one here, Nathan, about the legislation? Yep, the status of the legislation. Last we heard, it had passed one house of Congress, but not the other. What legislation are they referring to, Kate? You seem to kind of know what Thomas was referring to here.
There's a movement to include Camp Hale as the first designated National Historic Landscape. And as far as I know, it's still hanging around. Someone else can correct me if they know more on it, but I'm sorry, I don't know and can't answer that more fully.
Currently, it's a National Historic Monument now. I lose track of what that place is. But for those of you that don't know the history of Camp Hale, it was a military base where our 10th Mountain Division trained there in 1942 for World War II. So there's still some remnants of old buildings, and I found all kinds of wild stuff out there over the years of guiding in the area. A lot of cool stuff. Several closed zones as well for artillery. So be careful if you do find things. Leave them where you find them, right? Another great reason to leave stuff there at Camp Hale. All right. Other questions here. We had, we'll kind of quickly run through some questions. You guys drop any more questions you guys have in the chat there. We had a question about leave no trace, while boating or on 14ers. Sometimes it's really hard to have a small group. That is, we recommend small groups for safety, for travel purposes, for parking. There's a lot of great reasons to just kind of operate in small groups, but some places it's just not possible. That the summit of a 14er, there's a lot of people, but that doesn't mean you came with all of those people. But sometimes you might have, a 20 boat raft trip over in Utah or down near Moab. So that's, just do the best you can, I think would be my advice. And all of those other amazing principles still apply, right? So just do the best you can. Leave no trace was absolutely created through a partnership between Knowles and the National Forest Service in 1990. And those are kind of all. We had one question from a Rio Leo 1. Not sure who that guy could be, but it is about parking between trailers up at Vail Pass. And I would say you can if there's a lot of room, but be very weary that people have to pull those snowmobiles onto their trailers. So you probably don't want to park directly behind a trailer, or you might have some angry snowmobilers. Best case scenario. At your car. So just be, very aware of, that be respectful topic that we've been hitting on, that it's a mixed use area. Don't block people's trailers. Don't block people's cars. Really parking is a big issue as we see this increase. So just really think ahead, assume that trailhead is going to be completely packed with parking, and just find a good spot. And if you didn't find a good spot, then come earlier next time or find a different trailhead, right? We also had a question about, are MVUMs the same as an off-highway vehicle map? And my opinion is yes, most of the time, but Kate, do you have anything to add to that? For me, an OHV, off-highway vehicle is, ATVs, things like that. And those trails will often be shown on an MVUM, right?
Yeah, anything it has that motorized component to it will be defined. And then an interesting thing about our motor vehicle use maps as part of our travel management is kind of getting yourself into the mindset that everything is closed unless marked open. So that's something to sort of wrap your head around. It makes sense for us as land managers because we can't always be running around to these, thousands of miles of trails. So usually at the trailheads on the different websites, whether it's BLM, Forest Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, it'll be indicated on those routes what is available. So it might be horses, dirt bikes, pedestrians, so on and so forth. And that stuff's usually pretty well laid out, either at the trailhead and the trail itself, and then certainly on the MVUM. So if someone put in a good question that I was just typing on and I got a little distracted, but if your forest doesn't have an MVUM, usually the next best thing is to contact whatever land management agency, and that might be, say, Jeffco Open Space if you're down in Denver, or one of the local municipalities like Town of Breck. So, do a little bit of digging around and you can find that, and get that information.
Yep, I would second that as well. When you are in the backcountry and you see an open road with no signage, that means it's closed, most likely. Otherwise, it would say, here's the number of the trail, here's the things you're allowed to do on it. That is one of the biggest things I run into in the backcountry all summer long as a motorized guide is people well off trails that they're allowed to be on. And everyone just needs to understand that ultimately results in closures. If people can't simply follow, who's allowed to be on that trail and pick up their trash and go on them in the appropriate times where, oh, it snowed 6 inches, I'm going to go snow wheeling, and then you tear up that trail over and over, Kate and her buddies are going to get tired of fixing that stuff, so it's important that you respect it if you want to keep it open. Because I personally have seen a lot of really cool trails and access places closed because of misuse. And it's, it's something that's very personal to me, and it should be to you too, because this is your land and you want to keep it open. And the way to do that is to simply know where you're allowed to be, when you're allowed to be there, and what you're allowed to be on. And they make it very, very easy. It's on the sign most of the time, and they have all these great maps. So again, all these resources are out there for you, so please use them.
Yeah.
We got some other Q&A coming in here. Boom, good. Keep it coming, guys. We'll stay and answer questions for sure. What are the rules if there's not a winter MVUM map? So I think Kate just nailed that one. You know, like really, there's always going to be a resource if you're on public land to find out where you're allowed to be and where you're not allowed to be.
I think, Ben, I would just say that ties into the whole, all of us talking about planning ahead and preparing. So do some research before you head out. It's 2020, there's the internet, it's crazy cool. You can find a lot of good stuff on there. Yeah, just take that extra time.
Yeah, and there's a ton of great websites, you know, from 14ers.com to what is it, Trail Finder, you know, it's just Google it, you know. There's a million blogs, and you can find out, you know, how long these trips are going to take, what time you should be at the trailhead. People, you know, are a great resource, and these places are amazing, and most of them have been around, you know, well over 100 years. So whatever trail you're going to hike, people have hiked it. You know, whatever summit you're going to do, people have probably been there. And in this day and age, they've probably written a very descriptive blog all about it with photos. So a lot of great resources. Again, you know, those Forest Service websites, the state's websites, guide services, you know, there is a best way to do these things. And I certainly didn't know about all of these resources my first year getting into the backcountry. And, you know, I think we all probably made a lot of mistakes, whether they were going places we weren't supposed to be, or going off trail, or just making silly decisions in avalanche terrain. And that is kind of the background of this whole program, is we want to save everyone that tunes in from these mistakes, right? And just make sure that everyone stays safe and recreates responsibly in the backcountry this year. So, well, all right. If anyone has any more questions, you can always hit us up at info@westonbackcountry.com. We're happy to answer questions, and we've got a great customer service crew. Make sure that you guys tune in next week. We've got another great episode. We've got Michael Ackerman, the Deputy Director of the Silverton Avalanche School, also another one of our amazing Weston Guide team members. And we'll be discussing heuristics, you know, how the human factor really plays into travel in the backcountry. We've touched on avalanche education and gear and how to, you know, plan a trip. Now we've discussed etiquette, and kind of that last piece of this puzzle is just those things that you do as a human that you don't even think about. So that's called heuristics, and that will be a very fun, educational, and basically an hour of comedy with one of my favorite human beings and one of my mentors, Michael Ackerman. So definitely tune in. And Nathan, thanks so much for tuning in. You guys definitely check out that website and sign that pledge. Kate, thanks so much again for being here. You guys all give Kate a high five when you're allowed to the next time you see her up at Vail Pass. And Kiira, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for being here. We really appreciate all of you tuning in. And to all the viewers, thanks so much for tuning in. Please share this episode with everyone you know. You can check it out next week when we release it on Facebook and our YouTube channel. And again, we encourage you, share this message with everyone you know that's getting into the backcountry this year. Better yet, sign the pledge. So thanks so much. We will see you all on the skin track.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for listening.
You. Hmm.